Alexander Carson stood at the apex of the Metropolitan Museum's grand staircase, his commanding presence drawing attention from New York's elite gathered below. The annual charity gala, a playground for the wealthy and powerful, stretched before him like a chessboard of opportunities. His steel-gray eyes swept over the crowd with practiced indifference, cataloging allies and rivals with equal precision. At his side, Isabella Munro's fingers traced possessive patterns on his arm. Her emerald dress caught the light, a deliberate choice that matched the famous Carson Industries logo. "Darling," she whispered, her red lips barely moving. "The Peterson deal is watching us from the bar." Alexander didn't need to look. Richard Peterson, a potential acquisition target, had been circling for weeks. Instead, his attention caught on something else. A ripple in the crowd, a shift in the atmosphere that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The sensation was familiar, like a forgotten melody suddenly remembered. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event coordinator announced, her voice carrying across the marble expanse, "please welcome Ms. Victoria Arlington." The world stopped. Victoria emerged from the crowd like a vision in midnight blue, her presence commanding attention without demanding it. Gone was the hesitant smile Alexander remembered, replaced by quiet confidence that radiated from her very being. Her dark hair, once always carefully styled to his preferences, now fell in natural waves past her shoulders. But it was her eyes that struck him, clear, bright, and utterly free of the shadows that had haunted them during their marriage. Isabella's grip tightened painfully on his arm. "Your ex-wife," she said, voice sharp with recognition. "You didn't mention she'd be here." "I didn't know," Alexander replied, his usual controlled tone wavering slightly. He hadn't seen Victoria since their divorce 2 years ago, since she'd walked away from their life of luxury with nothing but her name and a determination he'd severely underestimated. Victoria moved through the crowd with grace, accepting greetings from old acquaintances and new admirers alike. Each interaction twisted something in Alexander's chest. This wasn't the woman who had lived in his shadow, who had deferred to his judgment in all things. This was someone entirely new, or perhaps he realized with growing unease, someone who had been there all along, waiting to emerge. "We should say hello," Isabella suggested, her smile not reaching her eyes. It would be rude not to acknowledge her. Alexander knew a command when he heard one, even draped in silk and social niceties. As they descended the stairs, he found himself adjusting his tie, a nervous tell he thought he'd eliminated years ago. The crowd parted before them, creating an inevitable path toward Victoria. She saw them coming. Of course she did. But instead of the discomfort or intimidation he expected, she simply turned to face them fully, her expression pleasantly neutral. "Alexander," she said, her voice carrying none of the tremor it once had when speaking his name. "Isabella, how lovely to see you both." "Victoria," Isabella purred, leaning in for air kisses. "That dress is divine." "Valentino?" "Actually, it's from a new designer, Lucia Chen. You probably haven't heard of her yet, but you will." Victoria's smile held a secret. "She's one of my investments." Alexander's head snapped up. "Investments?" Victoria hummed, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. "I've been quite busy since we last met. Starting a venture capital firm focusing on women-led businesses has been illuminating." The implications hit him like a physical blow. Victoria, his Victoria, who had once struggled to order dinner without checking his preferences first, was now moving in, the very circles he dominated. And judging by the respectful nods from several key players in the room, she was doing it successfully. "How fascinating," Isabella interjected, her tone suggesting anything but fascination. "Although venture capital can be so volatile, wouldn't you feel safer with more established investments?" Victoria's laugh was genuine and free. "Safety is often just another word for stagnation, don't you think? Besides, calculated risks are where true growth happens." Her gaze met Alexander's, briefly. "Something I had to learn the hard way." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a man Alexander didn't recognize, a rarity in his carefully cultivated social sphere. Tall, with kind eyes and an easy smile, he approached Victoria with familiar warmth. "Victoria, the Hendersons are asking about that tech startup you mentioned," he said, then noticed her company. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." "Not at all." Victoria smiled, genuinely pleased to see him. "Alexander, Isabella, this is Liam Everett. He's been instrumental in several of our most successful ventures." Her hand rested briefly on Liam's arm, the gesture natural and unforced. "Liam, Alexander Carson and Isabella Monroe." Recognition flickered in Liam's eyes, but his handshake was friendly and firm. "Mr. Carson, your reputation precedes you." "Funny," Alexander replied, his voice cooler than the champagne. "I can't say the same." Victoria's expression flickered, not with hurt or embarrassment as it once would have, but with something that looked dangerously like pity. "Liam's making quite a name for himself in sustainable technology. In fact, he just secured a partnership with Richardson Global." The name dropped like a bomb in their small circle. Richardson Global had been Alexander's target for months, a deal that kept slipping through his fingers. And now this upstart, this nobody, had somehow secured their cooperation? "If you'll excuse us," Victoria said smoothly. "We really should speak with the Hendersons. It was good seeing you both." She moved away with Liam, their heads bent together in comfortable conversation, leaving Alexander staring after her with an unfamiliar feeling in his chest. "Well," Isabella's voice cut through his thoughts, sharp as broken glass. "That was interesting. She's certainly changed." Alexander barely heard her. His eyes followed Victoria's progress through the crowd, watching as she commanded attention, without demanding it, influenced without forcing, led without pushing. She had become everything he claimed to be but wasn't, powerful without needing to prove it. For the first time in years, Alexander Carson felt something he'd forgotten existed: doubt. The gala continued around him, a swirl of wealth and influence that had been his natural habitat for so long. But now it felt hollow, like a stage set missing its star. Victoria's presence had revealed the artifice of it all, and worse, had shown him a glimpse of something genuine he didn't know he was missing. Isabella tugged at his arm, already plotting their next strategic conversation of the evening. But Alexander's mind was elsewhere, lost in memories of quiet moments and missed opportunities, wondering when exactly he had lost something precious without even realizing its worth. The night stretched ahead, full of potential deals and power plays, but for once, Alexander Carson wasn't thinking about business. Instead, he was remembering the look in Victoria's eyes, not of fear or submission, but of quiet strength and accomplished dreams. And for the first time in his carefully controlled life, he felt completely, utterly lost. The morning after the gala, Alexander Carson sat in his penthouse office, Manhattan sprawling beneath him like a kingdom he no longer cared to rule. The Wall Street Journal lay untouched on his desk, his coffee growing cold beside it. Instead of reviewing market reports, he found himself staring at his phone, open to Victoria's company website. Arlington Ventures. Her maiden name blazed across the screen, a declaration of independence he should have seen coming. The portfolio was impressive: tech startups, sustainable fashion brands, innovative healthcare solutions. Each investment seemed chosen not just for profit potential but for impact. It was everything his own company wasn't. A sharp knock interrupted his reverie. Isabella entered without waiting for a response, her Louboutins clicking against the hardwood floor. "Your 9 a.m. canceled," she announced, settling into the chair across from him. "And you've been avoiding my calls." "I've been busy." The lie fell flat between them. "Busy stalking your ex-wife's LinkedIn profile?" Isabella's perfectly manicured nail tapped his desktop screen, where another tab displayed exactly that. "She's certainly made quite a name for herself, though I wonder how much of that success comes from your connections." Alexander's jaw tightened. Victoria built this herself. Did she? Isabella's smile was razor sharp. Or did she just leverage your name, your influence, your... Enough. The word cracked like a whip. What do you want, Isabella? She leaned forward, her expression softening into practiced concern. I want to help you, darling. The Richardson Global deal is slipping away, and now we know why. Your ex-wife and her new friend have been undermining us. Liam Everett, Alexander muttered, pulling up another browser tab. The man's credentials were solid. MIT graduate, multiple successful exits in the tech sector, a reputation for ethical innovation. Everything about him read genuine, which somehow made it worse. He's not the threat, Isabella said, watching Alexander closely. Victoria is. She knows your weaknesses, your methods, and now she's using that knowledge against you. The accusation felt wrong, like a suit that no longer fit. The Victoria he'd known hadn't been capable of such calculation. But then, he was beginning to realize he'd never really known Victoria at all. The board meeting is next week, Isabella continued. They'll want answers about Richardson Global. If we don't act now, I said enough. Alexander stood abruptly, moving to the window. The city stretched endlessly, a maze of glass and steel that had once seemed like his personal playground. Now it felt like a cage. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Coffee? We should talk. V. His heart stumbled over itself, a sensation so foreign he almost didn't recognize it. Behind him, Isabella's reflection in the window showed her tense posture, the calculating look in her eyes. I have a meeting, he announced, grabbing his coat. Alexander. Isabella's voice held a warning. Don't forget who helped you rebuild after she left. He paused at the door, not turning around. No, Isabella. Don't forget who signs your checks. The elevator ride to the lobby gave him time to examine his motives. Was he going because he wanted answers about Richardson Global? Because he needed to understand Victoria's transformation? Or because for the first time in 2 years he felt truly alive? Victoria had chosen a small cafe in the West Village, as far from his usual power lunch spots as possible. He found her at a corner table, laptop open, reading glasses perched on her nose, an accessory he'd never seen before. She looked up as he approached, removing the glasses with a small smile. You came, she said, closing her laptop. I wasn't sure you would. You've become quite the mystery, Victoria. He sat across from her, noting how she held his gaze without flinching. I don't like mysteries. You never did. She pushed a coffee cup toward him. Black, 2 sugars, exactly how he'd always taken it. Some things haven't changed. The gesture struck him harder than any business negotiation. She still remembered after everything. Why did you invite me here? Because you're about to make a mistake with Richardson Global, she replied directly. And despite everything, I don't want to see that happen. Alexander leaned back, studying her. You're working with Liam Everett. He's a partner, yes, but this isn't about him. Victoria leaned forward, her expression earnest. The deal you're pursuing? It's wrong for Carson Industries. Richardson's looking for sustainable innovation, not just profit margins. You're offering the wrong solution. And I suppose you and Liam have the right one? We have an approach that aligns with their values. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The world is changing, Alexander. The old ways of doing business, your ways, they're not enough anymore. Our ways, he corrected sharply. You were there for all of it. No, her voice was soft but firm. I was there, but I wasn't present. There's a difference. She pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. This is our proposal to Richardson. I want you to see it. Why? Because you taught me everything I know about business, she met his eyes. But I learned everything I know about purpose on my own. Alexander stared at the folder, not touching it. Isabella thinks you're trying to destroy me. A small laugh escaped Victoria. genuine and slightly sad. Isabella sees everything as a power play because that's all she knows. Sound familiar? The barb hit home. You've changed. I grew. Victoria gathered her things standing. Read the proposal, Alexander. Then ask yourself why you're really fighting for this deal. Is it for Carson Industries' future or your own ego? She paused beside him, her perfume achingly familiar. For what it's worth, I never wanted to destroy you. I just needed to save myself. As she walked away, Alexander opened the folder. The proposal was brilliant. Innovative technology merged with sustainable practices, exactly what Richardson had been hinting at wanting. But it was the last page that caught his attention, a handwritten note suggesting a potential collaboration between Carson Industries and Arlington Ventures. His phone buzzed again, Isabella demanding an update. On the table, Victoria's proposal offered a different path. For the first time in his career, Alexander Carson found himself at a crossroads without a calculated strategy. The coffee she'd bought him grew cold, untouched, as memories of their shared past collided with the reality of their separate present. Outside, New York continued its relentless pace, uncaring of the personal dramas unfolding in quiet cafes. Alexander realized he had a choice to make. The problem was, for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure which option represented victory and which admitted defeat. His phone buzzed again, and again. The world demanded his attention, his decisions, his unwavering certainty. But all he could think about was the look in Victoria's eyes when she'd said she needed to save herself, and the haunting question of why he'd never noticed she was drowning. Isabella Monroe's Manhattan apartment offered a view almost as impressive as Alexander's, though she hadn't earned it through decades of business acumen. Her methods were more nuanced. Standing at her floor-to-ceiling windows, she watched a helicopter cut through the evening sky, its lights blinking like a warning. Her phone displayed Alexander's message. Working late, dinner tomorrow. A year ago, such a casual dismissal would have been unthinkable. Now, since Victoria's reappearance, everything was shifting. Isabella's perfectly manicured nails drummed against her phone case as she pulled up a contact she'd hoped never to use. Richard, we need to talk about Alexander Carson. Across town, in his office, Alexander pored over Victoria's proposal. The collaboration idea was elegant in its simplicity. Carson Industries' resources combined with Arlington Ventures' innovation. The market potential was undeniable, but something else caught his attention. Small notes in the margins, written in Victoria's familiar hand, pointing out opportunities he'd missed. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Carson, Mr. Everett is here to see you. Alexander's jaw tightened. Send him in. Liam Everett entered with the relaxed confidence of someone who'd never had to fight for respect. Mr. Carson, thank you for seeing me. You have 5 minutes. I'll need 3. Liam sat without waiting for an invitation. Victoria doesn't know I'm here. That got Alexander's attention. He leaned back, studying the younger man. Continue. She thinks you'll make the right choice about Richardson Global because deep down, you're still the man she married. Liam's directness was unexpected. I think she's half right. You're still that man, but that's exactly why you'll make the wrong choice. You don't know me. I know your type. Liam's smile held no judgment, only understanding. Men who build. Empires often forget why they started building in the first place. Victoria had to learn that lesson the hard way. Alexander's hand tightened on his desk. If you're here to discuss my marriage, I'm here to discuss your future. Liam leaned forward. The Richardson deal isn't just about sustainable technology, it's about legacy. What do you want to be remembered for, Mr. Carson? Being the last titan of a dying era, or the visionary who adapted? Before Alexander could respond, his phone lit up with a message from Isabella. Emergency. Board members calling emergency meeting. Tomorrow morning. Liam noticed his expression darken. Let me guess. Isabella's making her move. What? Do you know about it? More than you'd like. Liam stood. Check your email in an hour, and Mr. Carson, Remember, Victoria isn't the only one who needed saving. After Liam left, Alexander's office felt suffocating. He loosened his tie, a gesture that would have been unthinkable in front of others. His computer chimed. An email from an anonymous account. The attachment contained documents showing Isabella's secret meetings with board members, her carefully orchestrated campaign to undermine his position. His phone rang. Victoria. Did you send this? No, she answered. Liam did. He thinks you deserve to know the truth. Why didn't you tell me? A pause. Would you have believed me? The question hung between them, heavy with history. I'm not the villain in this story, Victoria. There are no villains, Alexander. Just people trying to protect themselves the only way they know how. Her voice softened. Including you. He thought of Isabella's manipulation, of his own rigid control of the walls he'd built so high he couldn't see over them anymore. The board meeting tomorrow. I know. Isabella's been planning this for months. She's going to use the Richardson global failure to push for your resignation. Alexander's laugh was bitter. And you're warning me because? Because despite everything, I remember the man who stayed up 3 nights straight to save his first, failing company. The man who believed in building something that would last. She paused. That man deserved better than what I could give him then. Maybe he deserves better than what Isabella's offering now. Victoria, just read Liam's proposal again. Really read it. And remember who you wanted to be before power became its own purpose. The line went dead, leaving Alexander alone with his thoughts and the growing realization that he'd been playing the wrong game all along. Hours later, Isabella arrived at his office unannounced. Her expression was perfectly composed, but her eyes held a predatory gleam. Darling, you've been avoiding me. I've been thinking. About Victoria's little proposal? Isabella perched on his desk, her dress riding up deliberately. She's trying to manipulate you, you know. Using your history, your guilt. Like you've been using my trust? Isabella's smile froze. What are you talking about? Alexander turned his laptop around, displaying the evidence of her betrayal. 3 months of secret meetings, orchestrated concerns from board members, a carefully planned coup. His voice was deadly quiet. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Alexander, the board meeting tomorrow. Your grand finale. He stood slowly. Did it ever occur to you that Victoria wasn't the threat to my company? The real threat was right beside me wearing designer dresses I paid for. Isabella's composure cracked. Everything I did was for us. You've been distracted, weak. Someone had to take control. Control. Alexander tasted the word like poison. That's what this has always been about, hasn't it? For all of us. Don't you dare compare me to her. You're right. Victoria left with nothing. You tried to take everything. He picked up his phone. Security will escort you out. Your keycard has been deactivated. Any personal items will be shipped to your apartment. You can't do this to me. I already have. Alexander turned to the window, dismissing her. Goodbye, Isabella. Her heels clicked furiously across the floor, then stopped. She'll destroy you, you know. She's already started. When he turned back, she was gone. Alexander sank into his chair, exhaustion seeping into his bones. On his desk, Victoria's proposal sat like a challenge. Beside it, his phone showed a message from Liam. Tomorrow's board meeting will be there. Outside his window, New York's lights blurred into a constellation of possibilities. For the first time in years, Alexander Carson felt something stirring in his chest. Not ambition, not pride, but something dangerously close to hope. He picked up his phone one last time that night. Victoria, we need to talk. About everything. Her response came quickly. I know a place. Tomorrow morning before the board meeting? Yes. One word, but it felt like the beginning of a revolution. Or perhaps, he thought, picking up her proposal again, it was simply time to remember who he'd been before power became a prison of his own making. Dawn crept over Central Park as Victoria waited at Bethesda Fountain. She'd chosen this spot deliberately. It was here, 12 years ago, that Alexander had first kissed her. Now, watching the early morning joggers circle the fountain, she wondered if he'd remember. He arrived exactly on time, his usual power suit replaced by casual slacks and a gray cashmere sweater. It was the most dressed down she'd seen him since their honeymoon in Santorini. The memory hit her with unexpected force. "You look different," she said as he approached. "So do you." He stood beside her, both facing the fountain. "This place. You remember." "I remember everything." His voice carried an unfamiliar weight. "Including what I've tried to forget." Victoria's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "The board meeting's in 3 hours." "I didn't come here to talk about the board." Alexander turned to face her. "Why did you really leave?" The question she'd been dreading. Victoria watched the water cascade down the fountain's tears, gathering her thoughts. "Do you remember our last dinner together? The charity auction. You wore burgundy. You spent the entire evening networking. I spoke to 17 different people and not one of them looked me in the eye. They looked past me, through me, waiting for you to join the conversation." She smiled sadly. "I realized I'd become invisible in my own life. You could have told me. I tried, for years." Now she turned to face him. "But you only heard what you wanted to hear. Success, power, control. They weren't just goals for you, Alexander. They were armor." He flinched. "And what about now? Your success, your power, they're tools, not weapons. I built something that matters." Her voice strengthened. "But more importantly, I built myself." "With Liam's help?" The question held an edge. "With my own determination. Liam came later, after I'd already started Arlington Ventures." She studied his expression. "He's not your replacement, Alexander. He's just someone who saw me when I was finally ready to be seen." The morning light caught the silver in Alexander's hair, reminding Victoria how much time had passed. He looked older, yes, but also somehow more vulnerable. "Isabella's been working with Richard Peterson." "I know." Victoria's response was gentle. "They've been planning this coup for months. Peterson wants Carson Industries' market share, and Isabella wants your position. Why didn't you expose them earlier? Would you have believed me? Or would you have seen it as the bitter ex-wife trying to cause trouble?" She shook her head. "You needed to see it for yourself." Alexander's hands gripped the fountain's edge. "I've been a fool." "No, you've been exactly who you trained yourself to be." Victoria moved closer, not touching him but near enough to feel his presence. "The question is, who do you want to be now?" Before he could answer, both their phones buzzed. Messages about the emergency board meeting. Reality intruding on their moment of honesty. "They're moving the meeting up," Alexander said, scanning his phone. "Trying to catch us off guard." "Then let's surprise them instead." Victoria pulled out a folder, different from the proposal she'd shown him earlier. "This is what Peterson's really been planning. Not just a takeover of Carson Industries, but a complete dismantling, asset stripping, mass layoffs, everything you've built sold off in pieces." Alexander's expression hardened as he read. "Where did you get this?" "Liam has connections in Peterson's tech division. They came to us weeks ago, worried about the ethical implications." She paused. "That's why we pursued Richardson Global. Not to hurt you, but to protect everything you've built, everything I built." Alexander's laugh was hollow. "You know what I remember most about our last dinner? Not the charity auction, not your dress. I remember watching you leave the table to take a call about a women's shelter donation. You were radiant, passionate, alive. And I felt threatened." Victoria's breath caught. "Alexander, I had built this empire of glass and steel, but you were building something that actually mattered. And instead of being proud, I was afraid. Afraid you'd outgrow me, afraid you already had. So you pushed me away. I pushed everyone away, until all I had left were people like Isabella, who only wanted what I could give them. He straightened, decision crystallizing in his eyes. The board meeting. What's your plan? Victoria smiled, not the polite smile of their marriage, but the confident grin of a woman who knew her worth. First, we expose Peterson and Isabella. Then we show them the future they're trying to destroy. The collaboration proposal? Enhanced. She handed him another document. Full integration of Arlington Ventures' Sustainable Tech Division with Carson Industries' manufacturing capabilities. Clean energy, ethical production, real innovation. Everything Richardson Global wants, everything the market needs. Alexander studied the proposal, his business mind engaging. This could work, but the board will see the choice between asset stripping and actual progress, between becoming obsolete or leading the future. Victoria checked her watch. We have 2 hours. Are you ready to build something that matters? For a moment, Alexander was silent, and Victoria saw the battle in his eyes. Old patterns fighting new possibilities, control wrestling with trust. Finally, he spoke. On one condition. Name it. After this is over, dinner. A real dinner. No networking, no business. Just us. Victoria felt something shift in her chest. Not the old flutter of insecurity, but something steadier, more mature. As friends? As whatever we're ready to be. She nodded, a simple gesture that carried years of complexity. We should go. There's a lot to prepare. They walked away from the fountain together, not touching but in step, leaving behind the ghosts of who they'd been and moving toward whatever they might become. The morning sun cast their shadows long across the park, 2 separate silhouettes, moving in the same direction. Alexander's phone buzzed again, Isabella no doubt making her final moves. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel the compulsive need to respond. Instead, he found himself remembering Victoria's words, building something that matters. Perhaps, he thought, watching her walk beside him with that new confidence, it wasn't too late to start. Carson Industries' boardroom crackled with tension. Isabella Monroe sat at the far end of the mahogany table, her red dress a splash of blood against the white leather chair. Beside her, Richard Peterson's presence was a silent threat. The other board members filed in, their usual pre-meeting chatter conspicuously absent. They could smell blood in the water, and everyone knew whose it was supposed to be. Alexander's entrance silenced the room. Victoria followed, then Liam, their unexpected presence drawing sharp glances from Isabella's corner. Alexander took his place at the head of the table, every inch the CEO despite the wolves at his door. Before we begin, Isabella started, her voice honey-sweet. I move to add an item to the agenda. Denied. Alexander's tone could have frozen flame. But I am adding one item, fraud and corporate espionage. The room went still. Isabella's smile didn't waver, but her knuckles whitened around her portfolio. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Alexander nodded to Victoria, who distributed folders to each board member. These documents detail a conspiracy between Ms. Monroe and Mr. Peterson to orchestrate a hostile takeover of Carson Industries. Peterson leaned forward, his face flushing. These accusations are absurd. Are they? Liam spoke for the first time, his tablet connecting to the room's display screen. Emails appeared, then meeting logs, bank transfers. We have evidence of secret meetings, planned stock manipulation, and intended asset stripping once the takeover was complete. Isabella stood abruptly. This is a fabrication. By your own team. Victoria's voice cut through the chaos. Your technology division came to us concerned about the ethical implications of dismantling a 100-year-old company for quick profit. The board members flipped through their folders, murmurs of shock and anger growing. Alexander watched Isabella's facade crack, satisfaction warring with an unexpected pang of regret. She had been brilliant in her way, just pointed in the wrong direction. Even if these allegations were true, Peterson interjected, the fact remains that Carson Industries is failing to adapt. The Richardson Global deal will be announced this afternoon, Alexander interrupted, but not in the way you expected. Victoria stepped forward, presenting a new set of documents. Carson Industries and Arlington Ventures are announcing a merger. Our combined technologies and resources will lead the market in sustainable innovation, exactly what Richardson Global has been seeking. The boardroom erupted. Questions flew, numbers were demanded, projections examined. Through it all, Alexander watched Isabella's face transition from shock to calculation to defeat. She'd taught him well about watching for weakness, but had forgotten that the student could surpass the teacher. This merger, one board member asked, it's legitimate? Fully vetted by both legal teams. Liam pulled up the contracts. The synergy between our company's capabilities is remarkable, almost as if they were meant to work together all along. Alexander caught Victoria's eye across the table. For a moment, he was back in this same room 12 years ago, watching her give her first corporate presentation. She'd been nervous then, seeking his approval. Now she commanded the space, her confidence radiating from within. The vote. Isabella tried one last time. The shareholders already support this direction. Alexander's voice was firm. Our major stakeholders see the future, Ms. Monroe. Perhaps it's time you did too. Security will escort you and Mr. Peterson out, Victoria added. Your resignations are expected on my desk by end of day. As Isabella and Peterson were led away, the boardroom atmosphere shifted. Excitement replaced tension as members pored over the merger details. Alexander found himself watching Victoria and Liam work in tandem, explaining innovation pipelines and market projections. A strange peace settled over him. The empire he'd built wasn't being destroyed. It was evolving. And maybe he was too. Hours later, after the votes were cast and the press releases drafted, Alexander found Victoria alone in his office. She stood at his window, watching the city transition from day to evening. The Richardson Global team is ecstatic, she said without turning. They're announcing their full partnership tomorrow. You planned this all along. Now she turned, moonlight silvering her profile. I planned to save your company. The way we're doing it. That evolved. Like us? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. Victoria moved closer, her heels silent on the thick carpet. You're different than I expected. Different than before. Different than I remembered. She stopped at his desk, fingers tracing the wood grain. The man I married would never have admitted he was wrong, let alone changed course so dramatically. The woman I married would never have built an empire to save mine. He stepped closer. We've both changed. Have we? Or have we just become who we were always meant to be? The city lights painted patterns across her face, reminding Alexander of another night, another conversation. But this time, instead of feeling threatened by her strength, he found himself drawn to it. Dinner, he said suddenly. I believe I was promised dinner. Victoria's smile held a hint of challenge. Business dinner? No. He moved to stand beside her at the window. Just us. No empires. No mergers, no past. There's always the past, Alexander. But it doesn't have to define the future. Their reflection in the window showed two people standing together but apart, the space between them charged with possibility. Outside, New York sparkled like scattered diamonds, a city of infinite second chances. Tomorrow night, Victoria said finally. I know a place. Not the usual spots? No. Her smile widened. Somewhere real. As she gathered her things to leave, Alexander felt something unfamiliar in his chest. Not the sharp edge of victory or the hollow echo of power, but something warmer. Something that felt remarkably like hope. Victoria, he called as she reached the door. Thank you. Not just for the company, but for... I know. She paused, one hand on the doorframe. Sometimes saving someone else means saving yourself, too. After she left, Alexander stood at his window for a long time, watching the city pulse with life. On his desk, the merger documents awaited his final signature. Victoria's already elegant beside his blank line. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, integrating companies, managing perceptions, building something unprecedented. But for now, in the quiet of his office, Alexander Carson allowed himself to feel something he hadn't in years, the simple, profound joy of beginning again. His phone buzzed, a message from Victoria. "Don't wear a suit tomorrow." He found himself smiling. As he typed back, "No armor needed," her response came quickly, "About time." Indeed, he thought, finally sitting down to sign the merger documents. About time for many things. Victoria stood in her apartment's walk-in closet surrounded by designer clothes that suddenly felt like costumes. Alexander's text blinked on. Her phone, "On my way, casual as promised." She finally chose a simple blue dress. No power signals, no armor. Her reflection showed a woman she was still getting to know despite the years spent rebuilding herself. Her doorbell rang precisely at 7. Alexander stood there in dark jeans and a navy sweater, looking both familiar and strange. In his hands, a bottle of wine, the same vintage they'd shared on their first date. "You remembered," she said, taking the bottle. "It was the only thing in my wine cellar I actually chose myself." His eyes took in her apartment, modern but warm with walls of books instead of corporate awards. "This suits you." "Because it's not a showcase?" "Because it's real." He followed her to the kitchen where she was already opening the wine. "Like that night in Rome, when we found that tiny restaurant off the tourist path." Victoria's hands stilled on the cork. "Our honeymoon. You hated that restaurant." "I pretended to hate it." Alexander accepted the glass she offered. "I was too focused on maintaining an image to admit I loved something so ordinary." "Is that what tonight is? Loving ordinary things?" His eyes met hers over the rim of his glass. "Nothing about you has ever been ordinary, Victoria." The Aida moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Victoria broke it first, moving toward the door. "The place I mentioned, it's walking distance." New York in autumn wrapped around them as they walked, the evening air crisp with possibility. Victoria led them away from the glossy storefronts and Michelin-starred restaurants, deeper into the neighborhood where real life happened. "Here," she said, stopping at a small Vietnamese restaurant. Through the window, families and couples sat at simple tables, steam rising from bowls of pho. Alexander's eyebrow raised. "No reservation needed?" "No pretense either." She pushed open the door. "Just good food and honest conversation." They were seated in a corner booth, the vinyl seats a far cry from their usual haunting grounds. Victoria watched Alexander study the laminated menu with the same intensity he usually reserved for quarterly reports. "What changed you?" he asked suddenly. Victoria considered the question while their tea was served. "Loneliness at first. After I left, I realized I'd spent so long being your wife that I'd forgotten how to be myself." She stirred honey into her tea. "But then, freedom, the chance to fail or succeed on my own terms. And Liam? Came along when I already knew who I was." She met his gaze steadily. "He's a friend, Alexander. A good one, but not what you're afraid he is." Relief flickered across his face, quickly masked. "I'm not afraid." "Aren't you?" She leaned forward. "Because I am. Sitting here with you, feeling like maybe we're finally seeing each other clearly. It's terrifying." Their food arrived, steaming bowls of soup that filled the air with aromatics. For a while they ate, in comfortable silence, the simple act of sharing a meal washing away years of formal dinners and power plays. "I miss this," Alexander said softly. "Vietnamese food. Authenticity." He set down his spoon. "With Isabella, every moment was calculated. Even when we were alone, we were performing. And with me? With you. He struggled for words, something Victoria had never seen before. With you, I always felt seen, even when I was trying to hide. Victoria's heart thumped against her ribs. Is that why you pushed me away? I pushed you away because you made me want to be better, and I wasn't ready to admit I needed to change. His hand found hers across the table. I'm ready now. The touch was electric, familiar yet new. Victoria looked at their joined hands, his strong and certain, hers no longer trembling at his presence. We can't go back, she said quietly. I don't want to go back. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I want to go forward, with the woman you've become, not the one I tried to make you be. A commotion at the next table broke the moment. A child spilled drink, parents laughing as they cleaned up. Victoria watched Alexander's face soften at the scene. You've changed too, she observed. Had to. Losing you, then nearly losing the company. It puts things in perspective. He squeezed her hand once before letting go. I spent so long, building walls that I forgot what they were keeping out. And now? Now I'm learning to live without them. His smile held a vulnerability she'd never seen before. It's terrifying. They finished their meal talking about smaller things, books they'd read, places they'd traveled, dreams they'd never shared during their marriage. Walking back to her apartment, Victoria felt lighter somehow, as if years of tension were finally unraveling. At her door, Alexander hesitated. Thank you. For tonight. For everything. Even for helping take down your girlfriend? His laugh was genuine. Isabella was never. She was a reflection of who I thought I needed to be. Like the restaurants we used to frequent, the circles we ran in. And what do you need now? The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Alexander stepped closer, his hand rising to cup her cheek. Victoria held her breath, but he only smiled softly. Now I need to prove that I can be the man you always saw in me. He dropped his hand, though the warmth lingered. Good night, Victoria. She watched him walk away, his figure straight, but somehow more human than she'd ever seen him. Inside her apartment, she kicked off her heels and curled up by the window, watching the city lights flicker like stars. Her phone buzzed, a message from Alexander. Dinner again tomorrow, my place, I'll cook. Victoria smiled, remembering the disaster that was his last attempt at cooking during their marriage. You mean you'll order in and pretend you cooked? His response came quickly. I've learned a few things, time to show you who I really am. She typed back, I'd like that. Setting down her phone, Victoria hugged her knees to her chest, feeling like a teenager again, but with the wisdom of years lived. Second chances were rare in their world of power and pretense. But maybe, just maybe, they'd both changed enough to deserve one. Outside, New York continued its endless dance of lights and shadows, while inside, Victoria Arlington let herself dream of possibilities she'd long ago locked away. Alexander's penthouse kitchen was a disaster zone. Smoke billowed from the oven, setting off the alarm while he frantically waved a dish towel at the ceiling. The promised home-cooked meal wasn't going as planned. The elevator dinged. Victoria's voice carried from the foyer. Alexander? Is something burning? He found her in the doorway, stunning in casual jeans and a cream sweater, trying not to laugh at the chaos before her. I may have overestimated my culinary progress, he admitted. May have? She moved past him, assessing the damage. What was it supposed to be? Coq au vin. Julia Child made it look easier. Victoria opened the oven, waving away smoke. You tried French cuisine for your first real attempt at cooking? Go big or go home. He watched her expertly turn off the oven and dispose of the burnt remains. I wanted to impress you. Alexander Carson. She turned to face him, eyes soft with amusement. You're already impressive, but maybe we start with something simpler? Together, they raided his surprisingly well-stocked refrigerator. Victoria taught him the basics, how to properly chop vegetables, the importance of timing, the simple pleasure of creating something with your own hands. During our marriage, she said, watching him carefully dice onions. Would you have ever considered doing this? Cooking? Never. He concentrated on keeping his cuts even. It wasn't productive enough. And now? Now I'm learning that not everything needs to generate profit to have value. He glanced at her. You taught me that, even if I didn't realize it at the time. They worked in comfortable synchronization, creating a simple pasta dish. Victoria noticed how Alexander approached cooking like a new business venture, focused, determined to master each step. But there was something else too, a playfulness she'd rarely seen before. You have flour on your nose, she said, reaching up to brush it away. The touch lingered, electricity sparking between them. Alexander caught her hand before she could withdraw it. Victoria. Her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. It's Liam, she said, checking the message. Isabella's making moves. Alexander's jaw tightened. What kind? She's talking to the press, hinting at improprieties in the merger. Victoria showed him the message, suggesting our past relationship compromised the deal. She's desperate. She's dangerous. Victoria leaned against the counter. A wounded ego in our world can do a lot of damage. Alexander moved closer, his presence solid and reassuring. Let her try. We did everything by the book. It's not about legality, it's about perception. Victoria ran a hand through her hair, a gesture of frustration he remembered from their marriage. If she can create enough doubt, then we'll face it together. He touched her chin, turning her face toward his. I'm not running this time. The pasta began to boil over, forcing them apart. They salvaged dinner, settling at Alexander's rarely used dining table. The city sparkled beyond his windows, a backdrop to their candlelit meal. Remember our first apartment? Victoria asked, twirling pasta on her fork. Before all this? That shoebox in Brooklyn with the radiator that never worked? And the neighbor who played saxophone at midnight. She smiled at the memory. We were happy there. We were. Alexander's expression grew thoughtful. When did it change? When success became more important than happiness. Victoria set down her fork. When proving something to the world meant losing ourselves. Silence settled between them, heavy, with shared history. Finally, Alexander spoke. I miss who we were. But I think I like who we're becoming even more. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. Even with all the mess, the uncertainty, especially that. He reached across the table, taking her hand. You know what I realized? All those years of controlling everything, I was just afraid. Afraid of being vulnerable, of being seen, of feeling. And now I'm terrified. His thumb traced patterns on her palm. But it's a good terror, like standing on the edge of something enormous and knowing you have to jump. Victoria stood, pulling him up with her. Dance with me? There's no music. Since when has that stopped us? He pulled her close, their bodies remembering a rhythm established years ago. They swayed in his kitchen, dinner cooling forgotten on the table while the city hummed its eternal symphony below. I have a confession, Alexander murmured into her hair. I've been taking cooking classes for months. Tonight wasn't my first attempt. Victoria leaned back to look at him. What? After you left, I realized I didn't know how to do anything. Real. Anything that mattered. His hands tightened on her waist. So I started learning. Cooking, reading fiction, visiting art galleries, and all the things I used to dismiss as wastes of time. Why didn't you tell me? Because tonight wasn't about proving I could cook. It was about proving I could fail. In front of you. He smiled ruefully. Although I didn't intend to fail quite so spectacularly. Victoria's laugh caught in her throat. This was the man she'd always glimpsed beneath the corporate armor. Vulnerable, genuine, capable of growth. Standing in his arms, she felt the last of her own walls crumbling. Alexander? Kiss me. He pulled back slightly, searching her face. Are you sure? After everything? Because of everything. She touched his cheek, feeling the slight stubble there. We're not who we were. Maybe that's exactly why this could work. His lips met hers softly, tentatively, so different from the passionate but controlled kisses of their marriage. This was a questioning, a conversation, a promise. Victoria melted into him, feeling his heartbeat race against her palm. When they parted, the world had shifted somehow. The city lights seemed brighter, the night air charged with possibility. Alexander rested his forehead against hers, breathing uneven. Stay, he whispered. Victoria closed her eyes, fighting years of ingrained caution. We should take this slow. Not for that. He pulled back, eyes serious. Just stay. Talk to me. Be here. Her phone buzzed again. More messages about Isabella, about the press, about the 1,000 complications waiting in their real world. But for now, in this moment, none of it seemed to matter. Okay, she said softly. I'll stay. Dawn found Victoria and Alexander on his balcony, sharing coffee and watching the city wake. They'd talked through the night, rebuilding bridges, burned years ago. But reality crashed in with the morning news alerts on their phones. Carson Industries merger questioned. Sources allege personal relationship clouded judgment. Isabella's handiwork was splashed across every major financial news outlet. Victoria scrolled through the coverage, her expression darkening. She's been thorough. Alexander read over her shoulder, his hand tightening on his coffee cup. The board will want an emergency meeting. Already scheduled, Liam's text confirmed. 9 a.m., full damage control. They separated to prepare, the intimate bubble of night giving way to crisis mode. Victoria changed into spare clothes she kept at her office, a power suit that felt like armor after the vulnerability of last night. The Carson Industries boardroom was tense when they arrived. Headlines scrolled across smartphones, whispers died at their entrance. Alexander took his place at the head of the table, Victoria and Liam flanking him. Before we begin, Alexander's voice cut through the murmurs. Yes, Victoria and I have a personal history. Yes, we're exploring reconciliation. No, it did not influence this merger. The press thinks otherwise, a board member challenged. Isabella Monroe's interview is a desperate attempt at revenge, Liam interrupted, distributing tablets. These are the complete merger documents, including all independent valuations and ethics reviews. Every decision is documented, every number verified. Victoria stood. Arlington Ventures Board approved this merger based on merit alone. My personal life was not a factor. The public perception, another member started, will change when they see this. Alexander nodded to his assistant, who clicked a button. The room's screens lit up with new information. Complete transparency. We're releasing all documentation to the press. Let them find a single impropriety. Victoria studied the faces around the table. Some showed relief, others calculation. A few still held doubt. She knew what they saw. The ex-wife returned to claim her piece of the empire. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. Having fun? Isabella's voice dripped honey-coated venom. You should enjoy it while it lasts. Victoria stepped out of the boardroom, Alexander's concerned glance following her. What do you want, Isabella? Want? Oh, I have what I want. Chaos. Doubt. The beginning of the end. A pause. Did you tell him about Dubai? Victoria's blood froze. How do you? 2 years ago. You were rebuilding your precious company. Needed capital. Met with some interesting investors. Isabella's laugh. Was silk over steel? Does Alexander know where Arlington Ventures' real seed money came from? That meeting never went anywhere. But it happened, with his biggest competitors, while you were still technically his wife. Another pause. Imagine how that would look to the press. The betrayed husband foolishly trusting his ex-wife again, not knowing she'd already tried to work with his enemies. Victoria gripped the phone tighter. What do you want? Step away from the merger publicly. Cite personal reasons. Let Carson Industries flounder without your technology. Watch it all burn. Or I burn you first. Your choice. The line went dead. Victoria leaned against the wall, mind racing. The Dubai meeting had been legitimate. She'd walked away specifically because of the investors' animosity toward Alexander. But the optics. Victoria? Alexander stood in the doorway. What's wrong? She looked at him. This man she was learning to trust again, to love again. The truth would hurt him, shake his newfound faith. But lies had destroyed them once before. We need to talk. About Dubai. They found privacy in his office. Victoria paced while Alexander listened, his expression unreadable as she explained. The meeting 2 years ago. The desperate need for capital. The ultimate decision to walk away. Silence stretched between them when she finished. Finally, Alexander spoke. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed. Not of the meeting. I did nothing wrong. But of how close I came to letting bitterness drive my decisions. She faced him. I chose to walk away. To build something clean, something mine. Isabella will release this story. Yes. It'll hurt the merger. The company. Everything we've built. Victoria's heart constricted. I know. Alexander stood, moving to his window. The city spread before him, as it had countless times before. But now, instead of seeing an empire to control, he saw a legacy to protect. Not just his, but theirs. Release it first. Victoria blinked. What? We release it. All of it. The meeting. Your decision to walk away. The ethical choice you made. He turned to face her. We show them who you really are, someone who chose integrity over revenge. Alexander, no more hiding. He crossed to her, taking her hands. No more walls. We face this together. It'll be messy. Life is messy. His smile held certainty she'd never seen before. But real things usually are. They worked through lunch, crafting statements, preparing documentation. Liam coordinated with both companies' PR teams. By afternoon, they were ready. The press conference was set for sunset, the city's golden hour. Victoria stood at Alexander's side as cameras flashed. Reporters waited. Their hands were clasped, visible to all. No more hiding. 2 years ago, Alexander began. My wife walked away from a loveless marriage and built something extraordinary. Today she stands here as my partner, both in business and in life. Some question our ability to separate personal and professional. I question anyone who thinks integrity and love are business liabilities. Victoria stepped forward. Today we're releasing full details of a meeting in Dubai 2 years ago. The truth flowed clean and clear. She watched Isabella's story crumble before it could be weaponized. Later, in Alexander's office, they watched the coverage together. The narrative was shifting, from scandal to redemption, from suspicion to celebration. A story of second chances, both in business and love. Think she'll try something else? Victoria asked, curled against him on his office couch. Probably, but we'll handle it. Together. Together. He kissed her temple. No more secrets, no more games. Just us building something real. Victoria looked out at their city, remembering all the nights she'd spent here during their marriage, feeling trapped by these same views. Now they felt like possibility, like future. I love you, she said softly. Not who you were, or who I wanted you to be. Just you. Now. Here. Alexander's arms tightened around her. I'm falling in love with you too. Again. Different. Better. Outside, the sun set on their empire of glass and steel. But inside, in the quiet space between heartbeats, something stronger was being built. A foundation of truth, of trust, of second chances earned rather than given. Their phones stayed silent. The world could wait. For now, they had this moment, this peace, this promise of tomorrow. Isabella Monroe stood in Richard Peterson's private office watching their carefully constructed plans crumble on every news channel. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing with cancellations. Lunch invitations rescinded, board positions withdrawn, social circles closing ranks. "They're destroying us," Peterson growled, throwing a crystal tumbler against the wall. "That press conference was brilliant," Isabella admitted. "They turned our weapon against us." She touched her tablet, bringing up Carson Industries' stock prices. "The market loves their redemption story." "Then we changed the narrative." Peterson's eyes held a dangerous glint. "Everyone has secrets, Isabella, even reformed sinners." "I've tried everything." "Not everything." He pulled out a file. "Remember our friend in the Dubai investment group? He kept recordings." Isabella's eyes widened. "Of the meeting?" "Of everything." Peterson's smile was cruel, including Victoria's real reason for walking away, the part she didn't share at that touching press conference. Across town, Victoria and Alexander were reviewing merger implementation plans when Liam burst into the office. "We have a problem." He connected his laptop to the display screen. "Someone leaked audio from the Dubai meeting." Victoria's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. The meeting was completely private." The recording filled the room. Victoria's voice, younger, angrier. "You want to destroy Alexander Carson? Get in line. But you'll have to find another way. I won't be your weapon." A male voice responded. "Ms. Arlington, surely your divorce settlement was fair. More than fair. I'm not here for revenge." "Then why are you here?" "Because I needed to know if I could do it. If I could betray him like he betrayed me." A pause. "And now I know. I can't. Not because I love him, but because I won't become him." The recording stopped. Victoria couldn't. "Look at Alexander." "There's more," Liam said quietly. "They're releasing it in pieces, creating a narrative that you only walked away because you couldn't hurt Alexander, not because of any ethical concerns. They're trying to make me look weak," Victoria realized. "Like I'm still defined by my marriage even now." "No." Alexander's voice was steel. "They're trying to make you look obsessed, like everything you've built was about me." He crossed to her. "We can fight this." "Can we?" Victoria's laugh was bitter. "They're not wrong, Alexander. I did take that meeting out of anger. I did want to hurt you. But you didn't. Because I couldn't, not because I shouldn't. That's growth, Victoria. That's strength." He touched her cheek. "And anyone who can't see that isn't looking hard enough." Her phone chimed, a message from Isabella. "Enjoying the spotlight? I need air." Victoria pulled away from Alexander's touch. "I need space." She fled to the building's rooftop garden, the same space where she'd once hidden during corporate parties, stealing moments of peace. The city stretched before her, indifferent to her turmoil. "I thought I'd find you here." Liam joined her at the railing. "Remember when you first hired me? You said you wanted to build something that mattered. I wanted to prove something." "No." He turned to face her. "You wanted to create change, real change, the kind that lasts. And now? Now you're letting them reduce your story to a man." Liam's voice hardened. "The Victoria I know doesn't hide on rooftops." She smiled despite herself. "When did you get so wise?" "When my boss taught me that real power isn't about destroying things." He handed her his phone. "They're releasing the next recording in an hour, but we have something they don't." Victoria looked at the screen. "The whole meeting. Every minute. Including the part where you laid out your vision for ethical investment. The part where you chose integrity over revenge." "Release it? All of it. No editing, no spin." Liam smiled. "Let them see the real you." Victoria found Alexander in his office, staring at the city like it held answers. "I'm not hiding anymore," she announced. He turned. "Victoria." I need you to listen. She took a deep breath. That meeting in Dubai? I went there broken, angry, ready to burn everything down, but something happened in that room. I found myself, not as your ex-wife, not as a victim, but as me. I know. No, you don't. She moved closer. Because finding myself meant letting you go. Really letting go. Not of the pain or the past, but of the power it had over me. She touched his face. And that's how I know this, us, now, is real. Because I don't need you anymore, I choose you. Alexander's eyes glistened. Release the recording. Already done. She showed him her phone where the full audio was uploading. No more secrets, no more shame, just truth. He pulled her close, their foreheads touching. I choose you too. Not because of our past, but because of who you are now, who we are together. Their phones exploded with notifications as the full recording hit the internet, but for a moment they stayed still, letting the storm break around them while they held on to something stronger than scandal. Truth, hard-won and freely given. Later, watching the coverage turn again, Victoria felt peace settle over her. Isabella and Peterson's weapons were useless against authenticity. Their empire of lies crumbled in the face of simple truth. Ready for tomorrow? Alexander asked, joining her at the window. Victoria thought of their journey, from power couple to strangers to something new, something real. Ready for everything. The city lights sparkled like stars fallen to earth, witnesses to their story of redemption, growth, and love, strong enough to survive truth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they had this. Two people who had lost everything to find something better. Gather. A year later, the Metropolitan Museum's grand staircase looked different in the morning light. Victoria stood at its base, remembering another gala, another lifetime ago. The space was transformed now, not with evening wear and champagne flutes, but with children in school uniforms and excited chatter. Ms. Arlington? A young girl tugged at her sleeve. Is it true you're giving us all computers? Victoria knelt to the girl's level. Better than that. We're giving your school a whole new technology lab, and scholarships for anyone who wants to learn coding. The Carson Arlington Foundation's first major initiative was launching today, bringing STEM education to underserved schools across New York. The press gathered on the steps, but this time they weren't hunting for scandal. They were witnessing evolution. Alexander's voice carried across the entrance hall as he spoke with teachers, his former imperial demeanor replaced by genuine engagement. He caught Victoria's eye across the space and smiled. That real, unguarded smile that still made her heart skip. Ready? He asked, joining her. Almost. She straightened his tie. Blue, matched to her dress. Some habits died hard. Nervous. About speaking to kids? Terrified. His hand found hers. But the good kind of terror, remember? They'd learned to embrace uncertainty together. The merger had transformed both companies, but their personal transformation had been more profound. The power couple that once ruled New York through fear and influence now led through innovation and impact. Isabella's final attempt at destruction had backfired spectacularly. The complete Dubai recording had revealed not just Victoria's integrity, but her vision, one that was now becoming reality through their foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, Liam announced from the podium, please welcome Victoria Arlington and Alexander Carson. They climbed the stairs together, but this time as equals. The children's excitement was contagious, their future bright with possibility. Victoria reached the microphone first. 1 year ago, I stood on these steps questioning everything I thought I knew about power, she began. Today, I stand here knowing that real power isn't about control, it's about creation, about building something that outlasts us. Alexander stepped forward. When I built Carson Industries, I thought success meant having the biggest empire. Today, we're building something better, opportunity, hope, a future where success is measured not in dollars but in lives changed. They announced the initiative together: technology labs in 50 schools, coding camps, mentorship programs. The press cameras flashed, but they weren't the focus anymore. The real story was in the children's faces, lighting up with dreams of what they could become. Later, in the museum's quiet conservation room, Victoria found Alexander staring at an ancient artifact, a simple clay pot, beautiful in its imperfection. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, slipping her arm through his. "I was thinking about perfection." He traced the pot's uneven rim. "How I used to demand it in everything. Perfect deals, perfect image, perfect wife. And now? Now I know perfection is overrated." He turned to her. "Real beauty has cracks, like that Japanese art you showed me, filling broken pottery with gold." "Kintsugi," she smiled, "making something more beautiful by embracing its scars. Like us." The word held such tenderness that Victoria felt tears threaten. They'd earned this peace, this understanding. Their love wasn't perfect anymore. It was better. Real. Her phone buzzed, a news alert about Isabella. She was launching a new venture in Europe, reinventing herself far from New York's memories. Victoria found she could wish her well. Some wounds healed so completely they stopped being wounds at all. "Miss Arlington?" A museum curator approached. "The children are asking for you both. Something about wanting to show Mr. Carson their coding projects." They found the kids in the new learning lab, proudly displaying simple games and animations. Alexander sat with them, his $1,000 suit gathering dust on the floor as he learned about loops and variables. Victoria watched him laugh. Free, unguarded, real. "He's different," Liam observed, joining her. "You both are. We grew into who you were meant to be all along." He squeezed her shoulder. "The board meeting's in an hour. The merger's first-year review." "Let them. Wait," Victoria decided. "Some things are more important." The afternoon sun painted the museum in gold as they finally left, the children's excitement still echoing in the halls. They walked home through Central Park, taking the long way. "Remember our first walk here?" Alexander asked as they passed Bethesda Fountain. "You were trying to impress me with market statistics." Victoria laughed at the memory. "I was trying to hide how nervous you made me." He stopped, turning to face her. "I'm still nervous sometimes. When I look at you, and can't believe we found our way here." "Here is good," she said softly. "Here is everything." He pulled her close. "Marry me again?" The question was quiet, simple, so different from his orchestrated first proposal years ago. Victoria looked up at him, seeing not the powerful CEO or the reformed businessman, but simply Alexander, her partner, her home. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "But this time, let's remember what matters." They sealed the promise with a kiss as sunset painted the sky in colors no empire could buy. Around them, New York hummed with life and possibility. Their city, their story, their second chance, made more beautiful by the breaking and rebuilding. Later that night in their favorite Vietnamese restaurant, they planned not a society wedding but an intimate celebration. Not a merger of powers but a union of equals. Their phones stayed in their pockets, the world's demands waiting while they savored the simple joy of being together. "To imperfection," Alexander toasted with his beer. "To growth," Victoria added, clinking her glass against his. "To love," they said together, and meant it with every scarred and healing piece of their hearts. Outside, the city that had witnessed their fall and rise sparkled with infinite possibility. But inside, in the warm light of an ordinary restaurant, two extraordinary people held something better than power. They held truth, trust, and a love strong enough to break and rebuild and become something real. Something that would last. If you could rewrite your own love, like Victoria and Alexander, what is the one thing from the past that you would change to transform your present? The story shows that sometimes you have to lose everything to find something better. What was your moment of losing everything that ended up leading you to something greater? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.